Good evening from Central Illinois, the heartland of the nation. Sunday, July 16th. I'm John Walsh, and this is America's Most Wanted.
I've been shot.
You give me the information now. Find the doctors.
I have a real emergency. Somebody just got kidnapped. Hold on the line with me, okay?
Richard Sturdy was an Illinois grain dealer who gave farmers a good price for corn and soybeans. The FBI says Sturdy and his cohorts were cheating, rigging grain scales to skim up to $10 million for grain that was never there. When the FBI moved in, Sturdy called it quits. Was it suicide, or is he in your neighborhood tonight? Jerome Vargo was 8 years old when he committed his first crime, but it wasn't his last. Police in Arkansas call him an expert at breaking into safes and breaking out of jail. But when Jerome Vargo was caught, he fired on a cop and fled. Tonight, he's still at large. This week, 4 of the nation's most dangerous fugitives have been captured. With your help, we can do it again. Welcome to America's Most Wanted. We're coming to you tonight from a farm near Jacksonville, Illinois, about 13 miles west of Springfield, the state capital. We're here on the trail of a man accused in a multi-million-dollar grain scam. But first, 4 of America's Most Wanted have been captured this week. 2 were profiled on last week's broadcast from San Francisco, and were in custody within 6 hours. The first was found in Vancouver, British Columbia, 30 miles north of the Canadian border. He was actually in this jail. He'd been there since March 23rd under an alias. Guards and inmates at the Vancouver Pretrial Services Center saw our broadcast and recognized Teddy Unterreiner, wanted by Oakland police for molesting 7 children.
Teddy Unterreiner is known to me as a prisoner by the name of Maitland. He's in our custody as a result of being charged with sexual assault of minors.
Last week, we reconstructed police accounts of how Unterreiner used phony IDs and posed as a social worker to move in on young boys.
This is a pretty impressive resume here, Kai.
Thank you, Mr. Cardona. You know, I saw this article in the paper on your bilingual program, and I'd really like to work with the kids.
This is a pretty unusual name. How'd you get that?
My mother was Thai.
Oakland police theorized that Unterreiner was in another Asian community searching for more victims, and that's exactly where he was. In February, Vancouver police say Unterreiner entered Canada under the name Daniel Alexander Maitland and moved to Vancouver's Chinatown. Here, they say he posed as a settlement worker, molested more children until police finally arrested him in March.
Earlier this year, our sexual offense squad charged a man known to us as Daniel Maitland. There were 3 charges of sexual offenses laid against him involving younger members of the Asian community.
Oakland police have requested Unterreiner's extradition to the United States. Unterreiner is an escapee from a Colorado mental institution. Last week, we also profiled Kelly Sunshine Lloyd. Thanks to your tips, she's in a South Carolina jail. Police call her the high-rolling madam whose brothel, specializing in teenage prostitutes, destroyed the career of a prominent San Francisco politician. Police say she cruised San Francisco in a vintage Bentley, recruiting runaways for her prostitution ring. But last May, Lloyd fled before she could be tried on prostitution and narcotics charges. The FBI says this truck stop became Kelly Lloyd's new business address, State Highway 15, near Bennettsville, South Carolina. This is Buddy's Truckers Motel. Lloyd worked here as a waitress, using several aliases. At 2 o'clock Monday morning, the FBI arrested Lloyd at this house trailer on a lonely back road. You got her cold. One of our hotline callers even described in detail a small tattoo of a bear on Lloyd's right buttock. The third fugitive arrested this week was Patrick Anthony Manillo. We profiled him last September. Police say Manillo is an enforcer for a Florida drug ring and a man responsible for 3 murders. This week, Manillo was traced to New Hartford, New York, where he was building a lavish new home for his wife and 2 children. A 12-man team of New York State troopers closed in Tuesday afternoon and arrested Patrick Manillo without incident. But the most unusual capture of the week came on Thursday afternoon. Mark Allen Harris is the convicted killer of a 2-year-old boy. And last month we showed you actual footage of his daring escape from the Kanawha County Jail in Charleston, West Virginia. Harris played a cat-and-mouse game with deputies for 5 weeks, but on Thursday they got him. An undercover detective convinced Harris he was a lawyer who wanted to buy Harris's life story for $5,000. Harris fell for the phony book and movie deal, and deputies nabbed Harris at his sister's home. When deputies closed in, Harris ran upstairs and crawled through a second-story window. He dropped 12 feet to the ground where he was collared by deputies. Tonight, Harris is in the West Virginia State Penitentiary at Huttonsville, beginning a 5 to 18-year sentence. When we come back, the search for a man accused of parlaying corn and soybeans into a multi-million-dollar scam. Welcome back to Central Illinois. The corn is tasseled here this week, and there's not much to do but watch the ears fatten and wait for harvest. Across Illinois, over 9 million acres of corn and soybeans are under cultivation, a fortune in grain worth billions of dollars. But the FBI is after a man it says engineered a multi-million-dollar crop swindle in these parts. It became known as Operation Grain Lord. The man's name is Richard Sturdy. Here in central Illinois, corn counts for a living. For the truckers who haul it, for the farmers who grow it, and for the brokers who sell it. Brokers like Richard Sturdy.
Tom, I didn't expect you till after lunch.
Grain brokers are the middlemen in Illinois' huge grain industry, buying from farmers and selling to big grain companies like Garnack and Mississippi River Grain.
What are you giving on corn anyway?
$2.65 a bushel.
I don't know how you do it. Phillips is only giving $2.55.
Good business, I guess. Come on, let's go sign in papers.
Sturdy was highly successful. He owned 2 grain elevators, bought corn and soybeans from farmers all over the state, and offered the best price around.
Richard Sturdy was a very charismatic person who could turn on the good old boy charm and be a farmer naturally and convincingly. Further endearing himself to the farmers was the fact that he paid cash on the spot in the transactions rather than with a check, is from what I've been told is the normal procedure.
Sturdy shipped the farmers' grain to terminals like this one. The terminal operated just like a checkout stand at a grocery store. Truck scales weighed the grain, corn in this instance, and a computer printed out a ticket. Each ticket was good for a check from the grain company. For a 20-ton truck of grain, the grain company would pay up to $6,000. All that grain traded on trust, a system that could be easily abused if a broker chose to cheat. During harvest seasons, the terminals receive as much as 15,000 tons of corn and soybeans a week. From here, the grain is shipped by barge to New Orleans. It's a big business, about $11 billion a year. Richard Sturdy had it all figured out. The FBI says he paid elevator managers, like Kevin Burgett, to rig the scales. All it took was a 2x4, wedged just so, to fool the computer into thinking there was a truck full of grain weighing in. The computer would print a ticket. That ticket was good as gold.
Richard Sturdy had placed operatives in elevators up and down the Illinois and Mississippi River who were fabricating scale tickets for non-existent grain, which would generate sums of money for Mr. Sturdy's grain elevator.
The FBI says Sturdy brought those checks here to the Farmer State Bank and Trust Company in Jacksonville.
Morning, darling. Listen, you want to take care of these for me, please?
Sturdy had a friend here, a woman he dated for 6 years.
You're really reckoning in, Dick.
As long as they grow corn, Big Sturdy's going to be scooping her in.
He had taken the woman on trips to Africa and Greece. The FBI says she cashed Sturdy's checks without endorsement.
See you later.
And Sturdy paid her $25,000 for her help. She was later convicted and fined for not paying taxes on the money. But it was an external auditor, Ed Reidemeyer of the Garnack Grain Company, who discovered Operation Grain Lord. Reidemeyer was tipped off when he discovered that 2% of all the grain routed through an elevator managed by Kevin Burgett was missing. Reidemeyer called the police.
When we first started the investigation with Ed Reidemeyer from Garnack Grain, he was investigating Kevin Burgett. Burgett led to Sturdy, and from there it led to many other connections, and we realized that it was pretty multi-jurisdictional, and at that point involved the FBI and the IRS.
On August 7th, 1986, the FBI met with Kevin Burgett and asked for his help. If he would wear a body wire and talk to the other suspects, they could pin Richard Sturdy.
You want to wear a wire for us?
Burgett agreed to cooperate.
Yeah? Okay.
On September 5th, 1986, Burgett met with Sturdy in a church parking lot in Manitou, Illinois.
I got that burst chasing his own tail.
He knows there's something wrong, but he can't prove it. I got him convinced there was a load on that scale.
Sturdy didn't know the FBI was listening.
Strawn's here.
David Strawn was another grain broker who the FBI says profited from Sturdy's scam.
How you doing?
Kevin, there ain't no way this guy's going to run you down. Only if you tell. That's the only way.
It ain't no use telling, because that means jail. If you don't tell, there ain't no way.
We got them both.
I couldn't prove it myself, and I know what happened.
David Strong?
Yes.
FBI, Morgan County Sheriff's Department, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, obstructing justice. Mr. Sturdy, can I get a sir, put your drink?
On June 23, 1988, FBI agents arrested Richard Sturdy at Strawn's lakeside cabin. David Strawn and 7 other co-defendants were indicted for their parts in Operation Grain Lord. All have pled guilty.
But in the end, everyone has suffered, save Dick Sturdy.
Sturdy posted $25,000 bond 3 days after his arrest. And last New Year's Eve, in room 306 of the East Peoria Holiday Inn, Richard Sturdy staged an elaborate vanishing act. The FBI says he was ready. Over the previous 6 months, he had liquidated assets, bought $3.4 million worth of rare coins and gems, and stockpiled a year's supply of prescription heart medicine. Then, Sturdy wrote his suicide notes.
Dear Mom, Deb, Sally, and Libby, I'm not scared, just tired. Goodbye.
I love you all. You will find the car in Hardy's parking lot at the west approach of the Cedar Street Bridge. Up the bridge, in the river. Please take care of Mom.
Early New Year's Day, 100 feet above the Illinois River at Peoria. Everything was in place for Sturdy's disappearance. But the FBI says Richard Sturdy didn't jump. He just walked away. Millions richer. Sturdy led a simple life among his neighbors, but the FBI says he has traveled all over the world. Here's his passport, covered in visas and stamps of entry from Africa, China, and South America. Sturdy has a scar under his right cheekbone. Take a close look. It's a 1-inch vertical cut. Sturdy suffers from hypertension and uses the prescription drug Vasotec. Sturdy also uses a medication called Grizactin, and his stockpile of these drugs may be running low. And a special alert to coin dealers. Sturdy had almost $2 million worth of coins when he vanished, including Krugerrands, Canadian maple leaves, and rare 19th century gold pieces. He may be trying to sell them off for cash. If you've seen Richard Sturdy, call 1-800-CRIME-89 now. FBI agents are standing by in our Washington studios, anxious to hear from you. You don't have to tell us your name. Next up, a daring thief who tried to kill a cop. Right after this. Safecracker with a history of escapes. He was cornered southwest of here, across the Mississippi and Arkansas, and that's when he tried to kill a cop. We have new clues after this review of the case of Jerome Vargo. Jerome Vargo was only 8 years old when he committed his first crime, as he later recalled in a handwritten autobiography. It wasn't much as robberies go, just some old fishing tackle from a neighbor's barn. But for Jerome Vargo, it marked the beginnings of a life of crime. By the time he was 31 years old, police say Vargo was a professional safe dealer. Vargo later wrote in his autobiography that he thought going to jail made him cool. His prison record spans 5 states and he's escaped at least twice.
Okay, Vargo, let's go.
But in 1984, he was finally released on parole, only to return, police say, to a life of crime.
Any more VCRs? No, there's some tapes left.
September 16th, 1987. Deputies say Vargo used a U-Haul truck to clean out the Crown Video Store in Neosho, Missouri, then drove south through Bentonville, Arkansas, with his occasional partner, Gary Morse, now in prison in Cummins, Arkansas.
As far as I know, he was wanted in another state. He was out on bond and had jump bond.
Stories don't match.
A routine traffic stop by Officer David Huff and Sergeant James Dre of the Bentonville Police then set off a tragic sequence of events.
So you carrying appliances? What else you got?
Some furniture, clothes, things like that.
Okay. Will you give us permission to search the truck?
I guess so.
You better get the serial numbers. I'll check the cab.
The round had hit me in the right chest area. Mr. Vargo had made his way over into the field on the west side of the highway and was firing rounds towards my location.
Vargo was arrested the next morning by Fayetteville, Arkansas police. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 140 years. Deputies say that on May 10th of last year, as easily as he had cut his way into so many safes, Vargo used a makeshift saw to cut his way into the air conditioning duct system and out of Arkansas's Pope County Detention Center. In an autobiography written in prison, Vargo brags about 8 escapes from the law. Maybe tonight we can put him away for the last time. This videotape of Jerome Vargo was taken after his 1987 arrest. He was born in Kentucky and still has relatives there, but he grew up in Indiana and Ohio. That's where police say Vargo learned safe peeling. He plied that craft throughout Arkansas and Missouri. A special alert to viewers in those states. Police say Jerome Vargo is likely to return to familiar turf. Look carefully at Vargo's arms. There's a tattoo of the Grim Reaper on his left arm. On his right arm, a buzzard with 2 roses. You can't see them here, but Vargo also has a 3-inch bluebird tattooed on each side of his chest and a large dragon on his stomach. Vargo stands 5'9". He's muscular, and he likes to jog and do push-ups. Police say Vargo likes to brag about his strength, to drive muscle cars and Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you've seen Jerome Vargo, call 1-800-CRIME-89 now. Arkansas officials and FBI agents are standing by in our Washington studios to take your calls. We'll be right back with more from Down on the Farm. Is mastermind of a multi-million-dollar grain swindle known as Operation Grain Lord. And Jerome Vargo is a convicted burglar and safe peeler. He escaped from an Arkansas jail after trying to kill the cop who caught him red-handed. Next week, America's Most Wanted comes to you from Salt Lake City, Utah. We'll see you then. I'm John Walsh, and good night from Illinois.